Newsbreak, brought to you by National Mutual.
Good evening, I'm Tony Jones. One sailor is missing and a fleet of helicopters has carried out a series of flights to rescue crew members from yachts in the Sydney-Hobart race. The boats were hit by fierce squalls and mountainous seas off Malakuta in far eastern Victoria. The 12-member crew of South Australian yacht VC Offshore Stand Aside were injured when it was dismasted and lost part of its cabin. Race organisers are closely monitoring the situation from Hobart.
They're all lifted off and taken to Malakuta Inlet, where they were taken to the local medical centre. I think one crewman may have lost a finger or a couple of fingers.
However, some of the other crew members, plucked from damaged and sinking craft, have been flown by helicopter to hospital in Victoria's Latrobe Valley. 25 yachts have now retired from the original fleet of 115. Through it all, giant Maxi, Sayonara and Brindabella continue their rush to Hobart and a chance to break the race record.
Given the right conditions, the Sydney to Hobart race record was always going to be under threat from these high-tech ocean tamers. Needing an average speed of 12 knots, the Maxi, Sayonara and Brindabella were breathtaking in an ever-increasing swell. But as expected, a predicted southerly had coastal rescue services on full alert. The Ian Murray-designed ABN AMRO Challenge was one of 6 yachts forced out of the race early. Her crew was eventually towed into Bateman's Bay and happy to be on dry land.
We just heard this really loud bang and the boat spun out of control, so there's half a chance we'd hit a sunfish or some debris in the water and the rudder sheared off at the deck.
In the wild conditions, Victorian yacht Challenge again lost a crewman overboard but got him back. While high-profile racers Wild Thing and Marchioness were also forced out of the race with equipment damage. After just the second sked report on the fleet's progress, Sayonara was already 86 nautical miles ahead of Morning Glory's record run. But that incredible progress is not expected to continue across Bass Strait. Clinton Fletcher, National 9 News.
The wild weather swept across much of Victoria today, dumping heavy rain and bringing down trees and power lines. Emergency workers answered more than 300 calls in the Melbourne area alone. The Mornington Peninsula in the city's south was one of the worst affected areas, with volunteers spending the day clearing trees and other debris from homes and roads. Winds gusted up to 85 kilometres an hour and the maximum temperature struggled to just under 17 degrees. Emergency services at Cairns Airport were put on full alert this afternoon as a Qantas jet made a forced landing. The Boeing 767 was on a flight from Brisbane to Port Moresby with 130 people on board when the pilot reported a problem with the plane's brakes. He decided to land at Cairns to have the problem checked out. The plane's hydraulic system was repaired and it continued to Port Moresby. Well, with British tycoon Richard Branson failing in his latest attempt to balloon around the world, an Australian will be among the next to try, preparing to take off within the next few weeks.
In a cluster of huts on the edge of the desert, a final frenzy is on. In 3 or 4 days, if the winds here die down, Canberra's John Wallington and Americans Dave Liniger and Bob Martin will take a helium balloon to the very edge of space. Where they're going, no one but astronauts have ever been before. But high in the stratosphere, they hope to float above the weather that has defeated all other round-the-world ballooning attempts, including, spectacularly, Richard Branson's latest effort.
The disadvantage, of course, is that we're in an extremely hostile environment. Virtually no pressure. We're above 99.7% of the Earth's atmosphere and extreme variations of temperature.
The journey has all of the dangers of spaceflight with little of the backup. Any tiny ruptures in their balloon, any problems with their pressure suits could well be fatal. In a balloon that will expand to be big enough to contain 2 jumbo jets nose to tail, they will float west from Alice Springs, hoping to circle the globe along the Tropic of Capricorn. In Alice Springs, Hugh Riminton, National 9 News.
Now to the 4th test at the MCG, and Australia will resume tomorrow at 2 for 59. Earlier, the Aussies dismissed England for 270. Alex Stewart scored a century, while Stuart McGill was the pick of the bowlers with 4 wickets. The Aussies suffered a couple of early hiccups in their innings. Among those to fall cheaply, skipper Mark Taylor for 7.
Oh, and that's well taken. That's a good wicket.
A brief look at the national weather now. Becoming fine in Melbourne and Hobart. Showers and a storm for Darwin and fine in the other capital cities. That's the news for now. Good night.
This has been a National 9 News presentation.